it feels like I don't know if this whole thing might devolve into a philosophy debate between is not voting for Trump or Biden the same as endorsing the other person that wins, because that seems to be a point of contention a lot of people have. If so, for instance, let's say one candidate is getting 100 votes, another candidate is getting 95 votes, and then a third party is getting 5 votes, and then let's say we have 10 votes left to divvy up. If you vote for the 5 vote person, you're essentially saying the 100 vote person gets to win.
Yeah, I mean, I just think a vote is a vote is a vote. So whoever we choose to vote for is who we're voting for. If that means that somebody else who gets more votes than who I voted for wins, then that to me is democracy. That's the way it works. So, I understand that argument from the viewpoint that America should be, or, is and should be and should remain a two-party duopoly. But many of us don't want a two-party system. And so many of us feel like there should be many more options. And in a system where there are more options, then you just cast your vote for who you like. And hopefully that person gains enough votes to win. But if they don't, they don't. That's the way the process works.
No, Destiny. I'm not falling for the okie doke. I'm not falling in line. You're one of the most philosophical neoliberals I've ever heard. Appreciate your channel. But I'm with Kim Iverson. I'm not falling in line for this lesser of two evils. If I vote for a third party, I'm really letting somebody else win. Damn that. I don't care who wins. That's why I'm voting for somebody else. I don't care about those other two options. I would rather not vote, and that's what I will be doing all the way down the ballot. I will not be voting unless it's a person I can get 100% behind. A lot of these people out here who I voted for, they haven't really earned the right to represent me. I don't care what the situation is. You are losing if you're choosing a lesser of two evils. What is good? This is Osiris, stuck in the middle. I do an upload every day at 9 a.m. Why did I start with that? Because it matters. If I had to choose for president and vote for president right now, and I don't think he's even officially announced it yet, but I'm going to get behind him because I feel the momentum, and it's someone who I am feeling like they have the right to speak for me. They can speak for me. Dave Smith. I am supporting Dave Smith for president. Who is Dave Smith? Well, he's a comedian.
No, I mean, I wasn't even planning on saying this, but it just kind of came up, and so I did. But I've been giving it a fair amount of consideration. And if nothing else, just because it's like, I know how to explain this libertarian shit. And everybody's always so frustrated that the Libertarian Party candidate doesn't do that. There's no reason why the Libertarian Party, that has by far the best platform of any political party in the United States of America, is seen as a joke. It shouldn't be.
That's why we need a comedian as the candidate.
Ironically, yes.
An ironic comedian who has no punchlines. You're modern Hannah Gatsby.
Growing up, I was not knowledgeable on the Libertarian Party. The only Libertarian I knew was the great, and he's still alive, so he's not the late great, the great Ron Paul. But that was the only one I knew of. Over the last 15 to 18 months, I've been doing a lot of research on liberty, let's just say. And now I'm getting into more of the more modern libertarians and reading up on the classic ones. In all seriousness, these are the only things that I saw from mainstream media about the Libertarian Party, and this is what made them a joke.
I would like to ask the body to consider that the Libertarian Party acquire a mascot. And I would like to propose Dobby from the Harry Potter series, who in the 7th book says, Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf, and Dobby has come to save Harry Potter and his friends.
All right.
The perception is that they take liberty with the idea of liberty. Easy, bro. That's too much for me. Too much liberty all at once. You're turning me off. And you wonder why no one respected them. Like Michael Malice mentioned, it's ironic to have a party that's been taken for a joke to be now looked at and respected based on the rise of a comedian. Well, his passion is what it's all about. He's got jokes, but he's got substance. What is more American than your everyday common citizen saying, wait a second, I can run for office. I can run for president. No one can explain my views better than me. That's why I'm doing it. He is the perfect antithesis to the filth in DC. Dave Smith probably could do more good in our world in the private sector. You might have heard people say that. Meet Kevin, a YouTuber, is running for governor of California. Many people are saying, well, hey, meet Kevin. You could do more in the private sector. Same with Dave Smith. Yeah, that might be true. But just like explorers, or let's use Mars. I'm passionate about going to Mars. Those first few astronauts that go out there, scientists, they might have a 50% likelihood of making it alive through the radiation, the food, the rockets, and everything that could go wrong. But they're the ones that have the courage to do it. Dave Smith is 100 times smarter than me. If he wants to do this, then my role isn't to tell him not to, it's to support him. Who is Dave Smith?
And he is a famous person from New York. He's a famous libertarian, Dave Smith, and he's a comedian, and he makes a living doing this. Picking on politicians and picking on Washington, as a libertarian, it must be easy. You can pick on Democrats and Republicans.
Well, that's right, and everybody else seems to be so divided into a team just based on a team, whereas libertarians are on a team based on principle. Like, we're on this team because we believe in this thing, and it makes it a little bit easier to use logic to go at everyone. And
okay, did you become a comedian first or a libertarian first?
I was a comedian first. So I was doing stand-up comedy. I started in early 2006. And so I was doing stand-up comedy in New York, and I wasn't very politically minded. I mean, I was anti-war because of George W. Bush, basically. You know, like, I was in New York when 9/11 happened. He came in and said, we're going to get the guy who did this, and then went into his own adventure, and it was very obvious to me that this was horrible. And so I was kind of, I kind of liked that the Democrats were the more anti-war group. So in my simple mind, I was probably like, oh, we'd be better off if a Democrat was in there. And then I saw one of the Republican debates, and I saw you and Rudy Giuliani going at it, and I said, who the heck is that guy? And I was so compelled because you were making the anti-war argument, not like the way the Democrats were making it. I realized they weren't actually really making the anti-war argument. They were maybe an inch over here, but you went right to the source of the problem. And anyway, so the heart, I mean, really what's hilarious about this is the heart of your argument, which was this controversial argument where you draws huge boos at the time. Your argument was essentially, when you murder people's children, they tend to hate you. Like, this is the argument that you're trying to present as if it's this radical view that any human being should be able to understand.
You see how it works? Dave Smith was influenced by Ron Paul and others. Now Dave Smith is influencing me and others, and we're just passing these ideas down the line to share them and say, hey, there's other ideas out here than these two cults that play these red and blue gang political games out here. I have two things that I'm looking at as my top two issues for any politician, especially one that's going to lead the country. Number one, someone who is not afraid to go against the idea, this new religion, this American disease of wokeism. Not that everything about wokeism is bad, but I want someone who thinks independently and is not a slave or not a victim of the woke mob.
But it's really incredible how, like, wokeism has kind of it's infiltrated almost everything. Yeah. It's like almost everything, from academia to big corporations to both major political parties, the entire corporate press, including the right wing corporate press. Like they all fall to it. It's the only other thing I could compare to it is progressivism, and wokeism is kind of like that. And I really think that we are going to de-wokeify the LP. That just those types are not going to be the one there. And again, it's like so many of them, they're stuck in this trap of critical theory where they put you into this binary where you're either a racist or a woke. You can't, right? Like you can't reject both of them. Whereas like our whole thing is that we reject both of them. We reject the collectivism of racism and the collectivism of critical race theory. Like we're against all of it. But that would, I really do think that would be quite an accomplishment on its own.
I'm learning about the ins and outs of the Libertarian Party and the politics behind the scenes. I'm still not fully knowledgeable enough yet. I'm still reading about it. I'm watching Dave Smith's channel, a part of the problem. But what I am seeing is this dude does have some political gravitas, some smart, some savviness. He's cleansing that party of all that foolishness I showed you earlier.
I don't understand how, whatever your politics are, you can be on the side of people who can't handle Dave Smith if they're interested in handling the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
In all seriousness, like if you aren't prepared to, take on some comedian with a podcast, how are you supposed to take on these two parties, which have massive fundraising efforts, huge corporations behind them, a brand name that people are historically comfortable with, depending on which side you are? This is what you're up against.
I feel like this kind of, this sense of joy, but this kind of tragic sense of like, it just didn't have to be this way. And you didn't have to go down this road. The Andy Craig letter when he resigned was really something. I mean, he listed off every little position that he's had in the Libertarian Party. And he was like, I was the head of this committee. I worked on this campaign. I volunteered for this thing. I did this. I ran for this office and got the highest percentage of anybody who's ever lost for that office. And now I'm quitting. And it was this thing of like, yeah, like you see it, like you see the kind of entitlement that this is what I was talking about when all the people were going after you, coincidentally, as your book is like blowing up. There are all these people who go through the approved channels and they do exactly what they were told to do. And they were told they get to be the guy if they do this. And then there's you, and you didn't do any of that.
No,
you just went right to people and started talking to them, and they really loved what you had to say. Like, that's bullshit. Who said you can do that? You kind of see this thing, but it's like, yeah, man, all of that, all these steps, this is an illusion that someone sold you. And I'm sorry you bought into it, but that's not what I'm not working for any of these institutions. My commitment is like to human liberty. It's not to your steps. My commitment is like to human liberty. It's not to your steps. My commitment is like to human liberty. It's not to your steps.
Successfully de-wokeifying an organization is not something to be taken lightly. My second issue for any politician right now is liberty. This is the statement that I want to make with my vote, is do not play around with our liberties. Once you start doing that, then everything crumbles to pieces.
You and I discussed on this show previously, like when you'd be on CNN and you'd be talking to S.C. Cupp about the Middle East, and she's like, okay, let's pretend I don't know anything. I've got comic Dave Smith on one hand, and then I have like the heads of the Joint Chiefs of Staff on the other. Who would you pick? And you're like, yeah, that's a very rational choice. If someone doesn't know, go with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So sure. I'll leave the floor up to you and your thoughts on everything I just said.
The way I make that work in my mind is that what I try to do, and I'm very careful about this, is that I don't speak out of my ass about the stuff that I don't really understand. Now, I'm not going to sit there and pretend that I have some expertise in this and say, like, well, this doctor is right and this doctor is wrong, just because I may like one more than the other. So what I've learned to do is what you can do is talk about what you know and really hone in on that. So what I will do is that if I'm reading epidemiologists who say Fauci is crazy and all of these strategies that he's proposing are nuts, and then you hear the Fauci supporters say all of the scientists agree, I can say, no, that's bullshit. There are other experts who disagree with this, and here's their argument. And so what I really focused on on the Rogan episode was just like, look, I'm not even going to get into the debates about the science of all of it. I'm talking about the naked government authoritarianism of it. And that's something we should all be really concerned about. And so I said, like at one point in the show, I said, look, even if you think every last one of these totalitarian measures was warranted by the threat of the virus, you still have to be concerned about the fact that we just instituted totalitarianism.
If the last 15 to 18 months don't have you putting a premium on liberty, I don't know what will. For me, it feels like I'm in the desert somewhere and there's no water, not even an oasis. And liberty is just that one bottled water that you might find in the desert with water in it. And you would pick that up and treasure it like it was the most important thing in this world. That's what liberty is right now. There is no chance a president could get my support if they don't acknowledge that there's a concern with this authoritarian nature that we've been in for over a year in our country and across the world. I'll end here. This is why I'm passionate about election integrity. And it's not about any one man. People come and go. You might find a person who can do the amazing and break through the two establishment duopoly that we have now. And if you don't fight for the rights of free speech, if you don't fight for the rights of election integrity to make sure our votes count, that person could easily get squashed because they won't be corporate. They won't have the backing of private equity funds and big pharma and all the other establishment entities that make a politician go. If you want to find out more about Dave Smith, check out his YouTube channel, A Part of the Problem. His Twitter handle is @ComicDaveSmith. And don't think it's impossible for that to be @POTUS Dave Smith. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Sheeple, lazy and evil. For years I've watched y'all allow Donald Trump turn you to crazy people. Where's that freedom eagle when you must need them? You bugging like beetles and lining up gleeful sticking needles in. 2020 was the year that y'all were losing it. Watching smart people I respect turn into lunatics. The rational became irrational. The avenue we travel through will have a few kickbacks will hassle you. Y'all fools so short-sighted, of course you write it. Shut it down, print money, you should be indicted. What you are doing is criminal. And been a fool, the end of you is gonna be the end of you, and your institute is crooked. Fools claiming I hate the police. Too stupid to understand that they are what they eat. Control freaks that'll use their own homies to seek power and then put them on the wall in a week. This industry is full of followers that holler when it's time to make a dollar, and positions that they wallow in are shallow, and they don't understand half the crap that they are swallowing, regurgitating all of it and acting like a scholar. Wait, this about all the contradiction that I can take. I'd rather you get it now, but truth is you kinda late. Your silliness is limitless and it would benefit your tendencies if you could just focus a little bit in that roller coaster of emotion that you're going through. Control a fool, I notice you letting it rolling over you. Logic ain't in the conversation, ain't in the realm or reality. Basic as an Applebee's, y'all chattel, see that poly pundit, that'll be the sheepdog. You know your teeth soft because you weak sauce. Teach y'all the basics of each fault. I be raw, rough around the edges like a tree saw. Got a lot of options, cause the optics always popping, and I'm dropping what I'm gonna do, adopting what I wanna do. Liberation, so every fake kid in 8 men that's pacing, cause I don't have to abide by the ways. I'm just saying, I'm feeling like $1 million Bitcoin. A lot of adventures I'm into, now I'm getting it going. Hit 30 and it's just getting worth it, cause I'm just getting started. Not perfect, loving all of it, it's awesomeness. Yeah, because I'm all that and then some. Rhymes taking over like carnage and venom. Shove that whack crap back where y'all boys had sent them. Keeping y'all sour like the warheads and lemons. Back to the point. Y'all went ape over something with a 99% survival rate. Got the jab and still got a diaper on your face, and that can getting kicked down the road by the state.